is Martin and Oda from the Tiny Glade team, and we're going to do like an intro to the music.
We just launched the game last night, 2 nights ago, and yes.
For those of you who are new to this game, Tiny Glade is a little game where you build castles, villages, ruins, whatever you feel like, at your own pace. There are no goals other than those you set for yourself, and we ultimately wanted to create a space where people can relax. We worked very closely with Anna and Tom from Panslide to find the right style for both sound design and music to really capture and enhance the world of possibilities that they were creating. Martin did a little sound design intro for last year's Save and Sound, so this time we're focusing more on the music. There are actually only 2 instruments that have been recorded live, and that is the flutes, which is my mom playing, and the trumpet, which is me. The rest are all virtual instruments. This was because we didn't have a budget. We could record me for free. My mom was more than happy to, for the first time in her life, be a studio musician. The studio setup that we have is very much homemade. It's just like this tiny room, and we put up a bunch of things. Hello. And then so there's a microphone, and then we go in here. So all of this stuff is just to make sure that we get a bit less reverb in the recordings. And then here is my sound card, and then here is my laptop, and that's it. The reason why most of the other wind instruments have really just staccato sounds and not really sustained notes is that it takes less time to program and make it sound good. And also, the shorter notes meant that there would be actually more space for the sound design as well. It also makes the transitions between different time of day and different instruments easier to navigate inside of Fmod. Alright, we are here inside of Fmod. This is the Autumn Glade music system event, and this is one of the tracks called Autumn Sun. Here you can see all the instrument stamps that we have for this track, which is quite a lot. We have a few different parameters here, like music intensity, music richness, day-night, and so on, and I'm going to set up the day-night parameter to increase over time. The music intensity is currently at 0, which means we just started a new glade and also haven't built a lot. This one decides which intensity layer each instrument is playing, which is what the purple, blue, green, and yellow boxes are. So basically, if you've built a lot, the music becomes more complex to match what you can see on screen. I'll just increase this manually as we go, which means we won't get the nice fades that we get in-game, but oh well. So now it's at 0.3, and that's a bit more fleshed out. And day-night is increasing by itself, so it's now midday. Let's switch to 0.6 now. That's even more fleshed out. And we're now in the evening. And topmost intensity. And it's middle of the night. So we're switching between different instruments depending on what time of day it is, and each instrument also has the 4 different richness levels triggered by the music richness parameter to match how long or how much you've been building. And just for fun, to make things a little bit more complicated, we also have the music intensity parameter, which is connected to the sound effects. So if you're building a lot and the volume of the building sounds are above a certain threshold, that will cause the parameter value to increase, which will make different instruments fade out according to the settings assigned to them. And then if you stop building, the parameter will start decreasing because there's no audio pushing the value upwards, and that will make the instruments fade back in until the tune is fully fleshed out again. One of my favorite things about working on Tiny Glade was that the narrow scope of it allowed us to go really deep with everything we did. The music system got to be as complex as it is specifically because there's no narrative or fast-paced action to underscore. Instead, we got to focus on getting our players into the right mindset to relax and be creative, and on making the environment feel alive and dynamic with a soundscape that adapts to the day-night cycle and various themes. I've never worked on anything that has as many parameters per sound as this game, and bug fixing and mixing became quite interesting towards the end. Martin added so many details and layers to the sound design that I'm sure people feel but don't actively notice, like how a small building sounds lighter than a big one when you move it around, and if you zoom out really far there is a different type of wind. And then there's wooden elements that are added in as a layer for half-timber buildings, and that's for all types of building sounds. The level of detail is so impressive, and that of course applies to the visuals and everything else as well, and I feel incredibly lucky that I got to be part of a team with individuals as inspiring as Martin, Tom and Anna. Another thing that ended up having a big impact on the music was the first couple of trailers that we made, because at that point I had not yet had time to make more than a few sketches. Since we didn't have any in-game music, I had to make something that felt like it captured the personality of the game, and that ended up being a very good starting point and reference for the rest of the tracks. For example, the very first announcement trailer had short musical phrases with a lot of silence between them because we wanted to evoke curiosity. This led to me choosing odd time signatures and often swapping between different ones within the same track to allow space for ambience, and it also added a nice and slightly uneven ebb and flow, which makes the tunes feel less static. And then there's the trailer that we did for a future game show. Here, the music was based on a sketch I made inspired by the first trailer. The music is much more fleshed out than the announcement trailer, and also much more than the in-game music. This track ended up being the main inspiration for the main theme, which is both in the menu music and also has a different variation per glade. I would also like to point out that the music would not sound at all the way it does now if it weren't for the fact that Tom and Anna came with so much feedback. The soundtrack for Tiny Glade is definitely not something that I made on my own. It's been a team effort for everyone who's been on the team.